Good morning from Apperley Bridge. When we woke up this morning, we were going to have a day not moving.
She decided otherwise.
Somehow, between waking up and getting up, there was a new plan in place.
Because she decided otherwise.
Even though it's raining.
And it's her fault.
So I think we're going to go to Shipley or Saltaire today in the rain.
Yeah. We just want to keep making progress. At the end of the day, we were slowed down too much by the lockdown, and we more or less think there's going to be another probably more significant lockdown come the winter.
So we want to move while we can.
Yeah.
And one reason not to move today was so that I could edit, because I'm really behind again. But we kind of realised that we need to edit come secondary to our lives. So if I get behind, I get behind, and it's not ideal, but
it'll work.
I'd rather when we get locked down again, have a load of vlogs to edit.
Yeah. So we're going to make a relatively short hop, though there are a fair number of swing bridges.
Oh my God, there's so many swing bridges.
2 staircase locks.
Everyone we meet is like, oh, I hope you like swing bridges.
Yeah. But when we get to the far side, we will be in Saltaire.
Yeah.
Or what's the other one?
Shipley.
So Saltaire is like this utopian town created by a guy named Salt so that he could make better factory conditions for his workers. And it sounds amazing, and it sounds like something totally worth visiting, and we will get to look around it. But like everything else, it is closed for the pandemic. So hopefully by the time we've gone through and you've seen this video, that whole thing is done, and you can go to Saltaire and tell us what it's all about. All right.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
These moorings were pretty ideal, fairly quiet, close to the shops, close to the marina and facilities, and most importantly, close to a very big field where George could go and chase his ball. This swing bridge is fully automatic and operated with a British Waterways key. There's full instructions on the control panel, which are very straightforward to follow. About half a mile from our mooring, we reach the Dobson locks, which are a staircase of 2. After our terrible experience at the Newley locks, it's fair to say we're a little bit apprehensive about doing another staircase. That's a lovely row of cottages at the bottom of the locks. We find the bottom lock is full, so first we need to empty the water out. We also need to make sure that the top lock is full, as once we're in the lower chamber, we'll need to fill it using the water from the top lock. Once the locks are ready, Michael brings the boat in. We're not too surprised to find the gates are leaking badly. It's turning out to be a very common occurrence for locks on this canal. Thankfully, this lock is long enough that we can keep our bow out of the flow of the water. Unfortunately, I really struggled to move the heavy ground paddles on this lock, so I have no choice but to raise the water using the gate paddles. I open the paddle on the opposite side to the boat and raise it slowly so we can control how much turbulence is created in the lock. Once the water's equalised with the level in the top lock, we can open the gates and move the boat into that chamber. Thankfully, the gates in the top lock aren't leaking quite so much. We've decided that I'll stay on the boat this time so that Michael can have a go at operating the heavy ground paddles. When we get to the top, we find 3 boats waiting to come down. Just one enters the lock though, the other 2 are going to wait and go down together. We move on to the water point as we need to fill our tank, but we discover that it's quite possibly the slowest tap we've encountered on the whole system. There's no pressure to speak of, and the water just seems to be dripping into our tank, so we quickly give up and continue with our cruise. Michael uses the walkie-talkie to tell me that there's a very wide beam approaching, and so I wait at the bridge to let them through before I close it again. This will save them having to pull over and drop a member of crew off to operate it. At 13 foot across, she is pretty wide and quite intimidating to see approaching. It turns out she's a hotel boat, and it's nice to see some guests relaxing in the lounge. The crew on the back don't look quite so relaxed, but they give me a wave of thanks as they pass. We arrive at the field staircase of 3 locks to find a boat moving from the top lock to the middle lock on their way down. They're happy for us to come straight into the bottom lock, which is already set for us. This means that we'll pass them in the middle of the flight. So they're now dropping down in the middle lock as we raise up in the bottom lock. Not only does this save water, but it also means there's more crew around to help with the ridiculously heavy paddles. At this stage, Michael and I switch places so he can work the paddles. George is very patient through all these locks. As we get to the top, we see a boat approaching, which means we can leave the gates open for them. What good timing. There are lots of boats on the move today, despite the rain. We find out that it's not only the locks that are in poor condition on this canal, it's the swing bridges too. I find this bridge impossible to move more than a foot, so Michael jumps off the boat to have a go and I take to the tiller. I don't even attempt to try and move this swing bridge. Michael and George take another turn. This is the outskirts of Shipley, and it's almost time to start looking for somewhere to moor for the night. Approaching the next swing bridge, we see a boat coming through the other way, and they very kindly wait and hold the bridge for us. At the end of this line of long-term moorings, there's a couple of visitor moorings. Unfortunately, they're all full today, so we carry on, and we pass all these unloved canal-side buildings. Shipley has a long history of textile manufacturing that dates back to well before the canal was built. In fact, the name Shipley is partly derived from the word sheep, indicating that wool has always been in plentiful supply here. The River Aire provided the water to power the mill and to clean the wool. That's quite the paint job. The Skipton to Shipley section of the Leeds and Liverpool Canal was completed in 1774 and enabled raw materials and goods to be imported and exported at a much larger scale.
Okay, so that took longer than anticipated.
Yeah, a bit longer.
And it's colder than anticipated. It's really cold. It's wetter than anticipated.
And we haven't got the replacement fire bricks. Ain't no fire going on in our boat tonight. It's going to be cold. Oh well.
I'm sure we'll warm up, it's just because we got wet.
Yeah, quite. Well, I got wet before I put on my rain jacket.
So then you had like this little steam room inside.
Yeah, it was just like, I'm just kind of fogging up in here. It was uncomfortable.
It's funny, everyone we've met coming the other way, well, not everyone, a few people we've met coming the other way, they're like, I hope you like swing bridges.
They mean it.
There's quite a few.
So basically we did the double
Dobson lock, that was. And then
Dobson lock, which is a double staircase.
Yeah.
And then we got up to the next locks, which are called like
field locks.
Yeah.
Which was a triple.
And they're a triple. And
in Dobson, that first one, there was such a leak. Like it just arches 2 meters from the gate, and it wasn't a lot of water, but it was enough, as we learnt the other day,
to soak things.
It just makes a little bit makes you a little bit anxious in there.
Yeah, and then you couldn't move the center like the ground paddles.
I could. I
but
can't
not
remember.
very well.
No,
That first one, you were really struggling.
I got them open, but it just takes so much effort. They're so heavy.
Yeah.
And which means Michael's stuck in the boat in the lock for longer, and it takes ages. And so yeah, by the second set, well, we met the other boat, and then in the middle lock I swapped. And
Yeah. It was kind of fun with me. Like, it was nice that he suggested that, because I thought we'd be waiting for them to go all the way down and then reset the locks.
yeah,
But it was like, oh yeah, no.
It was-
Well, you're in the middle. We actually do have an opportunity. I'll go in at the bottom, then we'll swap places.
he said to his crew member, he said, I'm just going to go and speak to him. And I was like, do you want to speak to him? Because I can speak to him, my little walkie-talkie. And I think it's called, like, people call it, I don't know if everyone calls it, but I've heard it before, where people call it the shuffle.
Right.
So he said, do you want to do the shuffle? And I knew what he meant, but I thought, if I say to you, do you want to do the shuffle? I thought, I don't know if you'll know what I mean.
Yeah. I'm like, 1950s dance? Sure, we can shuffle.
So yeah, it's his idea that we go in the bottom and then we swap, which worked out quite well.
It worked out really well.
Does
and-
it save water? It makes it a bit more efficient.
Well, no, it definitely saves some water.
Yeah, but it worked out, and it was
Yeah.
quicker. Because yeah, on that first set of locks, we went up, and then there was one boat waiting to come down, and then by the time we were coming out, there was 3 boats there, but the second 2 wanted to travel together, so neither of them would go in with the first lock. But then, of course, when they were going in, a 4th boat turned up. So if one of them had just gone in with the first boat,
Then they'd have
then
all ended up
everyone would
down.
have shared.
Yeah.
Instead, it took 3 cycles to get 4 boats through instead of 2 cycles, which was a bit silly. But
Yeah.
people
And
silly.
we moored up to do the water point. We had to do the garbage and everything as well, so it was useful to at least do that. But then we found out that the water point was like disabled, so it's
There's no
none of
pressure.
the taps in there are working. You can't take a shower, which is a good thing that Joe didn't walk up this morning to take a shower. And yeah, there's like a small trickle out of the water point, so we would have been waiting.
all day probably.
Yeah.
We'd still be there.
Yeah, just to get up like a little bit. So it's like, okay, you know what? To heck with that. So we continue on. Then the rains really begin.
Well, it's been on and off all day, hasn't it?
Yeah, but it was like that bit of like miserable hard rain. Yeah, and then once we made it up all of the locks, the swing bridges begin, and it was fine except for the first one.
Was it the first one?
What was the first one? Was it the first one
Oh,
was
yeah.
it's leaned over, so it's, you know, one side is definitely at least 1.5 feet down from the other side. And I think that might be the one that people were saying you had to like step on the far side. Anyway,
I couldn't do it.
yeah, she opened it a little bit, and I was like, yeah, it's moving, excellent. You know, she's got it, and then it just stopped. And I'm
I
like,
couldn't get it to go.
"Nope."
I couldn't get it to go either way.
Yeah,
So Michael had to come and do it.
yeah.
And then another
And
boat.
I mean, I really had to reef on that thing, and there were these 2 pedestrians who walked up. They're just on a little hike or whatever, and they're just like, oh, let's just watch this. And I'm like, you could help. And they're like, no, you've got it. And it's like, okay, no problem.
And then another boat came along. So was that there? You got to hold it for them.
Yeah,
So that was lucky for them. And that's happened. That's the second time that happened, because at the lock, at the bridge before the lock, there was that massive wide beam that's like the widest wide beam you could ever have.
yeah.
Which
It's
is a
as wide as
hotel
it could
boat.
possibly could. Yeah, it is a hotel boat, which is the point at which I begin to make excuses for wide beams that are
that wide.
That wide, because it's like, good lord, that is just too big.
And they were really happy that we'd held that bridge open. But yeah, you see that coming the other way, and it's like, well, I don't know where I'm going
Oh
to go.
yeah, it was just like, well, okay. And I messaged you on the walkie-talkie. I'm like, there's a big wide beam, and I'm like, I don't know how to convey just how big of a wide beam. When it actually came through the bridge, he'd messaged me with like, you meant it. That's a wide beam.
And then we finally got to Shipley, and there was another, I can't even lost count how many swing bridges, but for the first time in days, weeks, however long, someone was already doing it, so they held it open for us. So
Yeah.
it just, like, it works both ways.
And then we got to the beginning of Shipley, and unfortunately the visitor moorings there, which are one-day visitor moorings, which are right beside an Aldi, which actually would have been pretty convenient. They were full of boats.
Yeah, they look nicer than here, but this is all right.
Yeah, so this is Salt's Wharf, and what's it called? Ashley
Ashley.
Lane,
Yeah.
visitor moorings. And yeah, it's fine. It's a bit,
There might be nicer ones in Saltaire, but we've had enough.
yeah.
We can always move up tomorrow or whatever.
Yeah, well, you know. But I'm tired.
Me too. I need food.
I need some time off of this nonsense.
Yeah, I think I've realised that I love this canal, but it's hard, and I think you just need to do little bite-sized bits because
Yeah.
we've hardly done anything today. We've done 5 locks and like a couple of miles, not far, and it's taken hours.
This explains to me, a viewer that met us in Leeds, and moors up near there, told me about a guy there near where he moors who's got this wooden hand-built boat, and a piano is inside of it, and he's on a 15-year mission to deliver this piano all the way to London, and in 5 years he's made it from Liverpool to Leeds. And I'm like, is the Leeds and Liverpool that bad? Then I saw his boat, and I'm like, well, it's basically a canoe with a piano taking up a third of the deck area. And it's like, okay, maybe, we'll be fine. We've got an engine. We're no problem whatsoever. Then I actually start hitting it. It's like, yeah, this is going to take a while.
And there's weeds as well.
This is long. And there's a lot of swing bridges, and there's a lot of locks, and yeah, there's weeds.
But
I'm really looking forward to the Bingley Fire Rise, which we should get to. So there's Saltaire here, and then we're like 2 miles away or 3 miles away from
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering if we just moor overnight below them, so we just start fresh.
Yeah.
The day we do.
Still looking forward to seeing it.
I'd like to meet another boat to travel with because the double locks are hard on your own.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what we can do. Right. So, time for lunch. It's the beginning of August. Things are starting to cool down a bit. So I'm going to do some research as to where in Skipton we can get all the parts we need to be able to get our fire back in working order. Because I don't want to freeze. Yeah, so thanks for watching. Give us a thumbs up, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already. Subscribe to Minimalist Maximal Velocity if you want to see all of these in fast motion. And click that bell if you want notifications.